Hey everybody, welcome back to the Queens Lair. My name is Kellie and I am your host, Kellie Miles. Our Moms of Murdered Sons series, was initially 2 parts, but we decided to add a third part so we could hear from a male's perspective because our men's opinions and their information is valuable. So we need to hear from our men. So today we have Mr. Joe Budd of Men Who Care of Germantown. So we're going to bring Mr. Joe on and he's going to share with us a little bit about himself. How you doing, Mr. Joe? How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. So our Moms of Murdered Sons series is, as you know, talking a lot about the violence that's plaguing the city of Philadelphia right now. And so I know that you have an organization that kind of works within the community with our youth. So first, tell me a little bit about who you are, Mr. Joe.
All right. My name is Joe Budd. I'm the president and co-founder of Men Who Care of Germantown. I actually grew up in Germantown around the Morton and Tappahannock Street area. So I'm a product of the neighborhood that I'm coming back to help assist with this gun violence that's plaguing our community right now. So I basically lived in Germantown all of my life until the age of about 30. I moved out. I started a real estate business. So I am in real estate. That's what I do for a living. I'm a real estate salesperson and real estate investor. I'm married. I have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. And I'm just delighted to be on the show, how I can help out with what's going on in our community.
That's amazing. And I'm a Philly native too, so I know all too well about the challenges that we face in Philly. So tell me a little bit about Men Who Care of Germantown and what you guys do within the community.
Okay, Men Who Care is a nonprofit organization that started in 2011. Matter of fact, this is our 10-year anniversary. 10 years went by kind of quick when we were working in the community. But we started, it was funny how we started. One of our friends from back in the day came home. He actually came home from jail. His name is George Waters, and he started calling me, wanted to get together. So finally, I gave in and I met with him, and we just started talking, and we end up deciding to clean up lots in our community. We just wanted to do something in our community. So we started out by cleaning up lots 10 years ago. And then actually it just transitioned to helping the seniors in the neighborhood, then going into schools. So we are in the schools. We do food giveaway. We do real talk sessions in the schools with the young men. And also we do the fun days for the school. It's a lot of different things we do in the schools in the Northwest. And those schools that we're currently working in is Emlyn, Roosevelt, and Martin Luther King.
Okay, yeah, that's beautiful. I actually lived right down the street from Martin Luther King. And as a kid, because of all of the violence, even back then, it was so many people who were afraid to go to Martin Luther King and afraid to go to those schools like Roosevelt. So it's just amazing to see that you have taken the initiative, you and Mr. Waters, and making sure that you guys get out there in the community that you grew up in to try to make a change and make a difference. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about how the men work within the boys within the community.
Okay, and I did want to mention there's 10 directors in Men Who Care, and all of us grew up in the same area: Morton, Tappahannock, Pastoria Street, Mayland Street, right in the same area. So we kind of took the challenge on starting with Roosevelt. So we end up going to the school just to assist, see how we could just participate in helping our young men. So it ended up that we started the real talk sessions. We would go during their lunchtime. We would take pizza, chicken wings, and just say, what do you guys want to talk about? So we were building relationships. One of the keys to this is building relationships and being consistent with them. So we would go every 2 weeks and we would have conversations. Out of that, one of our guys instituted a teen court, where some of the peers of the students would dish out punishment for those that had infractions. Also started student government, which they didn't have at Roosevelt. We joined the SAC program, School Advisory Council. So these were things that we knew that we can engage the children, but not only the children, the parents, because it's so important to engage the parents also.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. That's really, really great. And so, I guess we're just going to share a couple of the pictures of some of the things that you guys have done within the community, just so that people can see how you guys are, this looks like Shelton Avenue and having the tables and stuff out there. So it's amazing to see all of the different things that you're active within the community. And not only that, but you have women who are partnering with you guys. And I think that's important because people need to see the collective, partnership that everyone has within the community. So I think that's just absolutely amazing. So let me ask you, in your opinion, what do you think is the root cause of the issue with the violence within the community? Is it a lack of discipline, not knowing how to deal with anger, fear, and frustrations? And from a male's perspective, is there some feelings of incompetence there? What do you think is the root cause?
I think all of those things are part of it, but also lack of education, lack of resources in the schools. And I think that we lost the village mentality in our community. And I
I
think that
agree.
we need to get that village mentality back, because it's so easy to blame a parent that may not know how to raise a child. But you don't know, a lot of people don't talk about the crack epidemic, that some of those parents that's trying to raise children are product of a crack epidemic that raged through our community in the 80s. So we don't
Hmm.
talk about some of that stuff. They say, I hear people say, that's not my child. Why do I have to? Well, that parent should be doing this. But if the parent don't know, it's our responsibility as the community to step in and assist any way we can. If we can help the child, maybe we can help that parent who might not know how to parent, and we can show them how to parent. And a lot of times we put all that blame on them, but we got a lot of stuff going on in our community, forces that's causing some of this. And like Pastor Wallace says all the time, we do have to look at ourselves and say, can we do better? And where can we do better as individuals and as a community? But I think it's going to take a holistic approach to this, and everybody got to get active right now. That picture you showed, it was Shelton Avenue. It was Shelton and Chew, one of the
Hmm.
hot spots in the Northwest section. So what we were doing there, we had food that we were giving out, but we also had job information. We also had vaccination information. We had expungement information. We were
Wow.
engaging the young guys that's on the corner. We went down and gave them flyers. Come on up and get a water ice and some pretzel. This is a way we can get them up there and talk to them. So we were engaging them, and we're going to continue to engage them on that corner and several other corners across the Northwest. So we believe that it's important to engage our community.
So let me ask you this. You were talking about that village mentality, and I 100% agree with you. The village mentality is like obsolete. It's just gone. A lot of people don't have it. It's few and far between. But what do you say when you have people who do want to step in and try to help, but then you have a group of people who don't want to be helped? Or you have someone who wants to now commit violence against you because you done stepped in and now they want to hurt you. So how do you maintain that village mentality when you have people who basically are so violent that they want to hurt the people that they're even trying to even help them?
It's how you step in, which is important, right? How do you engage the community? You cannot, and what I find a lot of people try to do is go in and tell them what they need to do, instead of engaging them and saying, what can I help you with? How can we be of assistance to you? What ideas do you have for your community? People don't want to be lectured to, right? So you go in, you build these relationships. After you build the relationships and the trust, now you can plant those seeds of trying to get them to do different things. I find that when you talk to people and show respect, they show respect back. So that whole notion that, somebody's going to hurt you. And if somebody's afraid to go in the community, there's other ways you can help: time, talent, or treasure, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to be on the street. You can give
Absolutely.
money, right? If you don't have money to give, maybe you know how to write grants for an organization that's on the ground. Maybe you know how to do flyers for that organization's T-shirts, whatever that organization needs. You can do it from your house. Make phone calls, build a database. If you don't feel like you can be on that corner, there's other things people can do to engage the community, and it's just as important as the ones on the street.
And, you know, I think it's really important that we do try to listen to find out what's going on with that person, what's going on with that young man, what kind of life is he living, you know, how is his home life that might be causing him to go to the direction that he's going in toward violence, and just accepting differences. Because I think that a lot of our seniors, they're so set in what their expectations are and how they see things are supposed to be, that they're not really seeing where our youth are today, and accepting those differences, and then taking a course of action from there so that they feel valued, they feel respected. So I think that's amazing. And so when you talk about their anger and their fear, why does the answer to anger, fear, or frustration always seem to be retaliation by causing the same pain to another person? You know, one of the previous shows we talked about, one of the mothers, her son was shot and killed. And while she's at the hospital with her son, the shooter's brother is now dead and he's coming in. And now you have two families that are dealing with the suffering of the loss of a child unnecessarily. So why is it always the retaliation to hurt another person?
And really, you have four families, because you have the shooters who shot those folk whose families are struggling, because it's not just the shooters. Sometimes these shooters think it just affects them. That mother is hurting because her son shot or murdered somebody. She's feeling some kind of way about that.
Yes.
Now he's going to jail. He's got brothers and sisters looking at him going to jail. So you have four families in that scenario you just said, and not just parents. You got kids that's watching this, and they're learning from this kind of behavior. So a lot of the anger is learned behavior. One of the things that we found out going into Roosevelt, everybody seemed angry. The teachers hollering at the students hollering at the teachers, you know, and it's like, sometimes I'm out in the street and I see a mother with a child, a young boy, and she's cussing at him like he's a grown man, you know, punching him in the chest, and he's 4 years old. So sometimes those things have to be addressed too. What are we showing our children as we're raising them? That gets back to the point of, if a person doesn't know how to parent, how do we help that person? You know, don't ostracize them, kick them to the curb. You know, how can we engage them? What we found is the best way to engage these parents is through the children. So that's why we've been pushing getting into schools, because a lot of people say, why you got to get into schools? Because that's where the children are, right? They may not come to a church, they may not go to a community center, but they got to go to school. And that's the best place to reach them. Once we reach them and they see that we care, and the parents see that we care, the parents start trusting us. And that's our fight with the district right now. I was at a Zoom call with Gabby Gifford last night, the gun violence conversations. I was there. And I stood up and said the same thing. I'll tell any politician watching this, any superintendent of schools, any principals, you need to have valid community organizations come in and be in the schools and help bring supplemental programming to help our children. You can bring in restorative practice, restorative justice, conflict resolution. We can bring in African culture. Our children need to learn about who they are and be able to have pride in who they are. The district isn't giving them that. So we as the community, as the village, we need to bring that in. And that's what Men Who Care is doing. We have an arts program, associated resources for community schools. The 3 schools I mentioned, plus Lingo Box, we're trying to bring Wagner in. And the goal is to bring in supplemental programs after school, African culture, African history, math taught from an African perspective, financial literacy, everything taught by us, to us, about us. So it's very important. And I'm talking about at a young age. I'm not talking about 9th grade, 10th grade. I'm talking about 3rd and 4th grade. They're not getting it at home. We need to make sure they're getting it somewhere. And the best place is in school. And then we can catch them before the streets catch them. That's our motto. How do we get to them before the streets get to them?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the only way to do that is to be present and be consistent. Our goal is to be as consistent as possible, because when we were at King, we were kind of shorthanded and we missed maybe a month of going up there. When we came back, they gave it to us. Those 10th and 11th graders, they said, what happened to y'all? We was expecting y'all. You know,
Wow.
so they were expecting us to come, and we let them down, and we said we will never ever let you down again. If it's only one of us there, somebody's going to be there to bring that pizza and have a conversation with you guys. Consistency is the key, and resources. How do you bring
And
the
that shows
resources in?
your impact. That shows your impact on them,
Absolutely.
that they were looking for you. And a lot of times that's what a lot of our boys are looking for, a consistency. They want to see a consistent be someone being there, a consistent presence. And I think that they were looking for you is a great show that you've made that impact on them. And you're talking a lot about resources, and that's another question that I was going to ask about too, is how does the lack of knowledge and resources play a role in the youth in our community? Because I know the Bible says to if you train up a child in the way that they should go, then when they get old, they won't depart from it. But if you have parents who don't have certain resources, and you have parents who don't have that knowledge, then it does come down to that village presence and those people filling in those gaps to raise the kids, to provide those knowledge, that knowledge and those resources, so that they can have what they need to be successful. Because maybe they just don't know what's out there and haven't been exposed to possibilities. So how do you think that lack plays a role in the violence?
I think it plays a major role because, people want to find something to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So either they're going to join something negative or they're going to join something positive. One of the things that really bothered us was they took a lot of the sports out of Roosevelt, right? So why would you take out sports programs? Why would you take
Mm.
out extracurricular activity programs when the children don't have anything to do as it is, right? So you want to give them things to keep their mind focused on something different, such as um, um, financial literacy, such as
Yes.
investing, things like that. And I'm talking about second and third grade. In our summer camp, we just completed a summer camp, 3 weeks at Roosevelt. We were talking to those children about financial literacy. And one of the questions is funny because we had a financial person come in and she was talking to them about finance, and they kept asking, how do we avoid taxes? How do we avoid taxes? Now you're talking about 11 and 12-year-olds talking about how to avoid taxes, but that
Right.
shows the mind of, I don't have to pay taxes. I can make some money, and, but let's channel that in a positive way, right?
Yeah.
So if you, like, I sell real estate, I do real estate investing. I'm always talking to the boys about entrepreneurship, investing. We had one gentleman at Martin Luther King. We were talking about drugs. We were talking about hustlers on the street, right? And I said, well, hustler is an entrepreneur also. But how can the risk that you take without outweigh the rewards? You got the stick-up boys going to shoot you. You got the police going to lock you up. So why not invest in something with less risk? I said, invest in real estate, invest in stocks. And one of the young men said, I got stocks. They all started laughing at him, right?
Wow.
I said, you really have stock? He said, yes. And they said, no, you don't. And he pulled out his phone. He showed
Wow.
on his phone his stocks. So that
Yeah.
generated a whole conversation about investing in stock right there in a real stock session. Now, mind you, these are what they call the worst of the worst in Martin Luther King, because they were getting ready to 21 or kick them out of the school. And we're saying send them to us first before you do that.
Yeah.
So we found that out, but we also found out in the similar sessions at Martin Luther King, 7 out of 12 boys carry guns on a regular basis.
Wow.
So that
And these
came
are
up
high
in
school kids.
high school. 7 out of
Wow.
12. I asked the question because it came about guns. I said, well, do you guys carry guns? They said, yes. I said, well, how many of y'all carry guns? Raise your hand. And 7 out of 12 raised this. I said, do you have them on you now? They were like, no, we don't have them on us now. But I said, well, what is the purpose of that? And I said, what if the police catch you with a gun? They said, I would rather be caught with it than without it.
Oh, wow. And
But the
it's sad
thing
that
of,
they think that way. They really do. Even with the police, they think they rather have it than not.
absolutely. But when you're in the streets, you have to, because I
Mm-hmm.
thought the same way, to be honest, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you never know when somebody's going to run up on you. And this is we're a product of our environment, saying, okay, how do I survive in this environment? But you have to figure out, how do we get them to think different? One of our
Mm-hmm.
things is, you got some shooters and you got some shooters, right? You got arch criminals who are going to just kill people, right? We
Mm-hmm.
may not be able to get that one. I say, that's just use the name Dante. Dante got some boys that hang with him. That's the them, And I learned this from another guy organization, Action for Justice Collective, Mike Brown. He said, we need to just get the and them. If we can't get Dante, let's get the and them.
Yeah.
Because the
Mm-hmm.
and them not real shooters, they not real gangsters. How do we get them off the street? Because a lot of times they the ones that get shot, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get them off the street? They're not a part of that whole game. They just hanging out. Let's find resources and get to them. We may not get Dante, but we can get those other ones. And if we get one of them, we're saving a life, or we're
Yeah.
keeping somebody out of jail. So
So
that
it
is
sounds, sorry, it sounds to me like one of the things that is key is getting involved with the young boys and allowing them to know how valuable they are, how important they are, exposing them to the knowledge and resources, because apparently with the knowledge the young man had with the stocks, it actually spiraled into a whole conversation, like you said, that if the boys actually just knew about it, they would probably work more together to try to outbid each other, in a sense, doing something positive than getting caught up with some of the things in the street. And so I want to talk a little bit about, some preventative measures. And you guys did a walk in the community. And this March, we're going to show a quick clip of the video of the march that you guys did. And then we'll talk a little bit about some preventative measures.
Yeah! Stop the violence! 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 Yeah! Come on, join us! Yeah! Come on, we're walking for peace. Join us! Peace. Walking for peace. Everybody for peace. Join us.
It's all right to have marches, but what happens after the march is over? Do we just wait for another one to happen and do another march? Or do we do something else? Yeah. We need action.
So first, I have to say that it's just amazing to see the group of people that were out there marching together. You have men, you have women, you have young people who were out there marching and literally screaming, "Join us! Who is going to march for peace? Join us!" And so I think my comment before was about preventative measures and trying to figure out when you're looking at starting them young. Is it easier to start them young, and how impactful do you find it in giving them those resources when they're that age, at a young age, than it is when they're getting older and they're in that high school level?
Yeah, about those marches. One was the Nicetown CDC, and they do a lot of good work in the community also. The other one was when a young girl was murdered over on Pomona Street. We marched with State Rep Stephen Kinsey. And that's when I was a little frustrated that, we keep marching and then, nobody does anything. If you look at that clip further, it talked about joining organizations that are currently doing things or supporting organizations that are doing things. That's where I talked about time, talent, and treasure. But I had to get that out because people need to know that, a 14-year-old boy was killed in Willingboro, shot in the head a couple days ago. And a 14-year-old was shot, I think it was in, I forget, Kensington or somewhere. He didn't die. He's in the hospital in critical condition. But when you're talking about 14-year-olds, we're in an emergency right now, and people aren't treating it like it's an emergency. And we need to understand that this is serious stuff. They talked about in 20 years, 2,400 people were killed in Afghanistan, 2,400 soldiers in 20 years. Calculate how many Black men or boys were killed in 20 years.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Higher. But
yeah.
I'm sorry about that. But to get to your question, reaching them at a young age is so important. At our summer camp, one of the young boys, his name was Chris. He got in 2 fights going to camp. The camp was only 3 weeks, and he got in 2 fights. And he knew he had an anger problem. And he said they asked him the question, what did you want to do in the future? He said he just wanted to make it to 18 years old because he knows he has an anger problem and he thinks somebody's going to kill him, right? But having conversations with Chris, I asked him, because they were playing music, I asked him, did he like rap music? He said, no, not really. I said, what kind of music do you like? He said, jazz, right? I was like, jazz? Okay, you're 12, you like jazz. I said, what jazz artist do you know? He said, I like Donald Byrd. Y'all probably too young to know who Donald Byrd is. Donald Byrd is a trumpet player that played back in the day, and he has some awesome sound. So the next day I brought the song Standing Like Dominoes. That was a Donald Byrd song, and me and Chris listened to that song. So I'm building these relationships with Chris. And at the end of the camp, our camp coordinators asked all of the students to write a letter or write something to the administrators or whoever. They put all of our names on the board, and Chris wrote, "Thank you, Mr. Joe, for helping me to control my anger."
Wow.
That brought tears to my eyes that, I was able to connect with him. Now I can't let that go, right? So I have to be consistent. I have to keep reaching out. We have to keep reaching out because, you can give them something at one time, but you got to continue to nurture that, because when they get to 8th grade, they get to 9th grade, the streets call is strong. It's stronger. Their peers are trying to get them out in the streets. If we're not there, the streets win.
Yeah.
And parents are struggling. Some parents working 3 and 4 jobs. It may not be that the parent really don't know how to parent, but they got to survive. They got to feed their family. So we as the community need to step up and stop talking and say, how do we help? And we need to force these school districts to allow us in these schools so we can nurture our children, because they ain't doing it. They are not doing it. When they got 85% teachers that don't look like us teaching our kids, something wrong with that. So how do we get in? If those teachers are there, we bring in cultural proficiency to get those teachers culturally proficient and teaching our children. We bring in cultural program that our children, because our children learn different than other children. Our children have different trauma, different experiences. I asked the young kids at the camp how many knew what lean was. Every one of them raised their hand. You go in the suburbs, you ask them what lean is. They don't know what that is. That is a cough syrup that people drink to get high.
Wow.
Right? These are 11th and 12th grades. I asked them, how does it make you look when you drink it? They started nodding their head. So these are experiences, real experiences that our children have that people don't want to talk about. How many of you had somebody in your family shot? Almost all of them raised their hand. How many know somebody in jail? Think about it. Then they say, why do our children act the way they act? They get it at home, they get it in the streets, they get it in the school. Where are we reinforcing who they are? Where are we giving them something positive? And if we're not going to do it as the community, as men in the community, as the village, I don't know how people expect them to make it.
Well, I have to tell you, this has been amazing, and you have added so much value and information to this topic. And one of the things that I hear you saying too, going back to the young man who liked jazz, is that you got to build a relationship. And that's the whole thing that even the Bible is talking about. The Bible talks about building a relationship with God, and then building a relationship with each other. And that is one thing that he is really, really pushing for us to do. And that is to develop relationships with each other, because when you can build that relationship, you're more impactful. People are more receptive to hearing you and receptive to receiving your help. So I appreciate you so much for just taking the time out to interview. There's so much more that can be said. We're not going to be able to reach everything, but we appreciate what you have given today. And we just ask that everybody to just make sure that you listen to the next episode that's going to be coming up. Make sure that you do the next episode and listen out so that we can make sure that you hear the next thing that's going to be talked about within our show. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Mr. Joe, and everybody have a great day.
Thanks for watching the Queens Lair. Stay tuned for the next episode.